the biggest thing I'm seeing right now across, businesses and specifically like consumer products is the shift away from like paid advertising. So think traditional channels like Facebook, Google, and so forth into more content creation, more partnerships with creators, more organic content, whether that's like posting on LinkedIn yourself or on your own Twitter or your own social media. um that's not going away. I think that over the next few years we're going to see a huge drastic shift in just the way that all companies do their advertising. And so the companies that are investing in content creation and strategies today will be leaps and bounds ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Empire Life podcast. I'm Allison Ramsey, your host, and this podcast is where we interview female founders from all around the world about their path to success, how they got there. And I am also a business and life mentor for female founders and female-owned businesses. And today we have Ali Nichols with us. She's the co-founder and co-CEO of Getaway, a short-term rental real estate investing platform that lets retail investors start with $100 and take advantage of travel perks like discounted stays with the portfolio of the properties. And prior to founding Getaway, Alexandra spent over 4 years as an executive at Bungalow, a technology-enabled residential real estate company. And I'll hand it over to her to intro herself a little bit more.
Thanks so much, Allison, for having me. Super excited to have the conversation today. You did such a great job. I think, right now we're really focused on building Getaway, which, as you mentioned, is an investment platform for new and experienced real estate investors alike to really get access into this rising industry that has become short-term rentals, or you can think Airbnb properties. So excited to go in deeper on that today and have a really great conversation.
Me too. Yeah. And welcome. Welcome to the podcast. And I want to dive right in. So, Ali, what do you feel like are the biggest challenges that we're both female-owned businesses? I mean, you're a co-founder of Getaway, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you feel like you've overcame, and how did those benefit you and make you stronger in the end of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges in my career was, coming out of school, had no idea what I really wanted to do or what industry I wanted to spend, my career in and investing in. So I went into consulting, like most folks do when they don't quite know yet. But I had moved to San Francisco, and I was in this ecosystem where everyone around me was working at a startup or within the tech industry, and just absolutely loved what they were doing and were working on really cool, exciting challenges, and had so much autonomy and agency over what they were doing and ownership, that I decided very quickly that I needed to break into the tech industry. And at the time, one of the companies that I was just enthralled with was Uber. And this was, you know, earlier in Uber's life when it was starting to become mainstream, this idea of like push a button, get a ride. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the entire world, coming from a place. I went to school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and like there was no such thing as a taxi. So us trying to get home from the bars after, they closed, it was pretty scary thoughts. Uh, and so with that, I decided, okay, I'm going to work at Uber, but it didn't come easy. Like I think I applied to over 50 roles at the company and just kept getting rejected. Didn't really have a, referral or a way into the company. And um, just knew that if I kept trying and kept, trying to connect with people, make introductions, get coffee, just like work on getting this goal of working at this company, that it would happen. And so that like perseverance finally, I think 6 months later, landed me my first job really in tech in San Francisco. That's one of the major challenges that I think I was able to overcome, and also kind of set the path for the rest of my career and to date, now being a VC backed founder wouldn't have happened without that experience.
That's an incredible journey that you just shared, and the perseverance and it's okay. I just got knocked down, or I got denied this job. I'm gonna get back out there. I'm gonna get back up. I'm gonna apply again. I'm gonna try to have coffee with some of these people so they can get to know me personally. That's what it takes in your own company, right? So you were already starting that journey.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that perseverance and like never going to give up attitude is like one of the biggest things that I'm taking with me throughout, all of my experiences. And I think can for everybody is something you really need to be successful, especially as an entrepreneur.
Exactly. And to continue to get back up and say, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm here
exactly.
to stay.
I'm
This is who
fighting.
I'm fighting. I'm not until I win, the next client, until I have VC backed funding, I'm gonna keep going. And then probably the goalpost is even another goal after that, after you get some of those things that you want. And I can
Definitely.
relate to the Uber part too. I have a teenager, and she was saying, how am I gonna get home if I went to a college? Because we're starting to talk about colleges. She was like, how am I gonna get home if I'm a little bit further from the city? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Just get an Uber, be safe. She's like, well, what if you get an Uber bill and it's like for 2 a.m.? I was like, I won't mind. I just want you to be safe. It's like I didn't even
Totally.
have that option,
Yeah.
like you were saying. It's like we had to rely on somebody. I think there were taxis in the area because I was in the city, but still we usually had to rely on someone really being a designated driver for real. And were they actually doing that? So I
Totally.
relate to what you're saying. The next question that I wanted to go into is, this is a fun one. If you have a morning routine, or if you feel like that's important for.
So I definitely think a morning routine is very important. Am I the best at sticking to mine? Absolutely not, because it feels like so many things are coming up all the time, and I'm often guilty of wake up, pull out my laptop, start doing emails right away, which is not great. But when I'm really like operating at my best and feel like I'm producing um, the most quality output, I feel like I'm waking up feeling refreshed because I got a good night's sleep, getting a morning workout in, eating a quick healthy meal, and then like being on my way for the day. The times and periods when I'm able to do that, like I do feel like work product is so much better. But it's tough. It's so hard to stay that regimented, especially when, you know, running your own business, it feels like you're firefighting so many different things all the time, and there's a crisis every other day. So I'm not, though I know it's best, I'm not the best at doing it.
I'm similar. I try to focus on certain key elements that help me to feel like I'm gonna have a good day. Like you said, eating a healthy breakfast, waking up at a good time, going to bed at a good time, and having a
Yeah.
nice night routine. I've been better about taking night vitamins like
Oh, it's
magnesium
good.
that like kind of helps me chill at night and calm down and sleep better. Or taking a hot bath with salts and or a bath bomb. And like you said too, not like immediately grabbing my phone and checking email, or not checking email right before I go to sleep, because sometimes team members are at different places in the world. We have one that's in the Philippines, some that are in Mexico, so they might email me at different times. Like
Yeah.
I got an email last night at 11:30, and I still checked it. I was like, what am I doing? I need to be unwinding and present with the people that are around me. So it is, or social media. I
Yeah.
try my best not to immediately do that when I wake up.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up the present around, being present with those around you, and whether that's like family or friends. That's like one thing I've definitely struggled with the most. Is like I'm a self-proclaimed worker bee. I think my fiance would tell you, if it were up to me, I would be working 100% of the time. So figuring out a way to like put the devices away. And like for me, that's even like taking my Apple Watch off because like I'll get
Right.
email or Slack notifications on my watch, and it's just like hard coded in my DNA to be like, oh, there's an email. Oh, there's a problem. Someone I need to get back to. Like, I'm going to
Mhm.
completely like leave what I'm doing here with you in person and go to that. So that's one thing I'm personally working really hard on is like creating space where I can put the laptop down, put the phone down, take all the devices away, and like really be present with my family. Because when I do those things, I'm again, the output on the work side is better.
That's for sure. And I find myself that I know when I'm doing that because I'll say, 1 second, let me answer this real quick.
Yeah.
And 1 second. And I'm like, why am I doing this? We can't have a conversation. And then I'll say, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm present. I'm present. I need to almost say that to myself
Yeah.
in order for me to actually be present. Because sometimes I think the other day I was with my daughter and we were having quality time, and I thought, I'll just put these things in the calendar that are reoccurring real quick. And I noticed that it was going to take longer than I thought it was going to take because we were just sitting there on our phones in a cafe while I'm putting
Mm.
things in the calendar. And I said, okay, this is the last one because I was going to do like 6 months out. And then I realized, why am I doing this? We're having quality time. I could
Yeah.
do this later. And she was extremely patient in the moment, though. She was like, it's okay. You need to, you don't she did remind me, though. She's like, you probably don't have to do 6 months in advance, Mom. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay. Why didn't I think of that?
Totally.
Like you
Yeah. It's
said, it's just you want to work all the time and get things done. I feel a similar drive to what you're talking about.
yeah, and it's tough to balance that. Because I think, we're in a situation where you're trying to get something off the ground, like you want it to be successful. It feels so core to your identity. And kind of like your pride and self-esteem in a lot of ways. And so it's like in a lot of ways I'll do anything to make this work. I want to make this business work. I want to be successful. um, but there comes a point in time where you can't jeopardize everything else in your life and all the people and relationships, because those are also things that make you successful and make you you. So
Yeah, and feeling connected with the people in your life that you love needs to be part of our daily routines
yes.
because eventually we look back on the week and we're like, okay, we're on date night, but oh, hi,
Yeah, exactly. Who are you again?
Yeah, we have barely talked this week. How is it going? Yeah, that's not a good place to be, is my point.
Yeah, exactly. So
And the next question to go into is, what do you do when you have any kind of resistance coming up in any capacity? I mean, it could be also related to wanting to constantly be on, I guess, touched in, like in touch or
yeah.
connected, plugged in. That's the word I was looking for. How do you unplug, or how do you handle any kind of resistance?
Yeah. So, I would say first, I really, if I'm self-aware enough to realize something's happening, I like to really take a step back and like really understand what's the root cause of this feeling or the resistance, whether that's, resistance from a team member on an idea or moving something forward, or whether that's like, personally, like I'm resisting letting go. It's like, what, let's take a step back and understand why that's happening. Is there, you know, a big crisis happening that I feel like if I'm not, tuned in and plugged in 100% of the time, things are going to get worse or, not be fixed. If it's working with someone else, like really understanding what is actually like the root cause of this feeling or pushback. And then having once you have a better understanding of where it's coming from, it's a lot easier to diagnose and help build a strategy to fix, or even think about it more logically of like getting away from just like the feeling of like, oh my gosh, if I don't stay attached to my phone 24/7 during this crisis, it's all going to go downhill. It's like, well, actually, let's think through, what is the downside risk here? Is that really true? Do we have it handled to a certain extent? Are there even things I can even do right now to fix it? And so just really focusing on like, where is the root feeling coming from? And then can we resolve it at that point? Versus, I think oftentimes that feeling of resistance, whether it's from yourself or someone else, is the output of something of that root cause. So really trying to get to the bottom and the real problem, so to speak, and focusing on fixing that and coming to a happy solution.
I love the point that you made too about asking yourself, I feel like I do this too. I ask myself, if it's 11:30 at night and I get an email, for example, can I really do anything in this moment to fix this?
Yeah.
Is me taking time right now going to mean that, or can I do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I love that point too, that you said.
And then the next level of that is like, okay, you can't do anything tonight. So instead of just not even like executing on anything, it's also mentally being okay and like letting it go for the evening so you can get a good night's sleep so that you are well equipped tomorrow to handle the problem. Because I think so often I'm like, oh my gosh, 11:30 at night, we have this problem. I'm gonna stay up all night and worry about it. That doesn't do any good either.
That's so true.
Yeah.
When I've had that feeling in the past, sometimes I'll draft an email and then I'll look at it the next day. So I feel that I was productive about that topic, but I didn't send it and I didn't keep dwelling on it. Or I'll make a calendar reminder for myself about it, what I'm thinking in that moment. It as my fiance Joe's like, why do you put like 5 sentences sometimes? And because we have a shared calendar, because it makes me feel more productive in the moment, and I don't want to forget something that I was thinking in that moment, but I don't want to do it in that moment. I'm sure you get it.
Yeah, I totally get it. No, I totally get it. I think that's such a good approach too, because it's like, okay, let me get out on paper without having to like think through meticulously, like read what I'm saying and make sure I'm not missing anything. And then it's like, I'll deal with this in the morning and I can come back to those thoughts and like run the full process. But it at least gives you like that release to let it go for the time being. I love that.
Thank you. I used to have a journal by my bed sometimes and I would write it down, but I found it more beneficial for me to put it on the notes app on my phone.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm out at a meeting or somewhere else, or I get the reminder when I'm doing something. It seems a little easier to keep up with, to keep track of. And then I really want to get to like one of my favorite questions. Well, in 2 questions. The next one is, how do you handle negativity when that comes up? That could be, for example, maybe some people in your family don't quite understand that you want to be your own boss. I've had that personally. Just an example.
Yeah, negativity is really tough. I think the biggest negativity I honestly face is from my own self. Like especially as like an early stage founder, getting a company and a product off the ground from 0 to 1. You can doubt yourself a lot. Like there's like constantly like, oh my God, this isn't working today. Like, should I even be doing this? Am I good enough to be doing this? Like you just constantly can grapple with those feelings. And I think, especially as women, like we also have this feeling of like imposter syndrome a little bit of like, do I even deserve to be here? Like that it's hard to shake. So when those instances happen, I've gotten better at kind of like realizing I'm in a bad cycle and being like, okay, I need to remove myself from the situation. I need to take a break, go on a walk, go for a jog, play with my dogs, like do something that brings me joy or takes me out of, this work like bubble. and just get back to a place of being like neutral or even like grateful. Oftentimes, like if I remove myself from the situation, do those things, like I'm able to then take a step back and be like, wow, this is an amazing position. Like, there's people that believe in me and building this product and what I want to bring into the world. Like, how awesome and lucky and grateful and like should I be because of that. And so if you can, like, I think just removing yourself from the situation just helps reset mentally, and allows you to get back to a place where you're kind of outside looking in versus being in the middle of like the tornado. If that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And when I love to ask myself the question, when I start thinking, do I deserve this? Is this something I need to put out there? Are people going to buy this? Are people going to want to be my clients? Have more clients? How am I going to get more clients? Like those kind of questions. I start to ask myself, which I have done in the past too, with certain goals. If I was feeling fear, it's like, if
Yeah.
not me, then who? Like,
Yeah.
if like you, like if I don't do this app, then who's going to do it?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is a great question and way of framing it, to like be like, hey, snap out of it.
Yeah, because you have a unique idea proposition, and I have a unique voice that no one else can have. And I know that there's amazing businesses out there, there's amazing apps, obviously, but it's still not you. It's not something that you did. Yeah.
Totally.
That helps me, like you said, just kind of reframe everything and feel
Yeah.
really grateful too.
Change your perspective. Like when you're in those negative spirals, somehow change your perspective, whether that's a place, a question, just reframing your state of mind really helps snap out of it.
I think another thing that helps snap out of it is looking for what you're creating. I'll give an example. I am a business mentor for female founders, and I want to personally, or in the past, I have personally sought out having a mentor for myself, and found it extraordinarily difficult to find a mentor for myself. And that led me or similar to you, it's like how maybe that was what even motivated you to start Getaway. It's like, okay, I want this and I can't find it. So I need to start it myself. And
Exactly.
reflecting back on that, it's like, okay, I need to be out there doing this, because even I'm having a challenge to find. Even this year, I would love to have another mentor, and it's difficult to find women female leaders in a lot of industries still, sadly.
Definitely. And it's so funny you bring that up, of it's a challenge that you were trying to solve. And so you started your own company. I think, a lot of what we've done with Getaway is the same. Like we really, as kind of semi-successful millennials, my co-founder and I really wanted to start getting into real estate investing, but just like didn't have enough capital to do it ourselves on our own. And so we're like, wait, we should be able to change this for like us and our friends and our peer group and really everyone to be able to get access to investing in this type of asset. So very similar story in that sense.
Yes, I'm a millennial too, and I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah.
relate. And the next one is probably my favorite question, is a childhood story reflecting why you do what you do.
I started a real estate investing company. I've been kind of obsessed with real estate my whole life, but it really started as a child. So I always joke that after church on Sundays, I would take out the Oregonian newspaper and go through the open house section and like circle all of the houses that I thought were really interesting that had open houses on Sunday and beg my parents to take me to each of the homes. And it's so funny because it's like we would go and they would play along. Like it was like a fun family activity that kind of occurred for years and years. Like even when I go home now, my dad's like, "Do you want to go to an open house this weekend?"
Oh, so nice.
but it was so funny because I would go and, a lot of folks love real estate. They love looking at beautiful homes and the architecture and uh there's just a sense of like we're attracted to that as a space we surround ourselves in. But I always, even as a kid, would look at every opportunity as more of a deal. And I would try and convince my parents that, they should sell their house and try and trade into this one because it has these characteristics and was in this school district and was more likely to, be worth more money more quickly and like appreciate faster. I didn't know that at the time, but so I was always looking for the optimization when it came to real estate. Um, and it's funny because now that's literally my job. I like get to go out and pick, the best investment opportunities, within the short-term rental space, but very similar characteristics of those original homes I was looking at the age of 10.
That's an amazing story. That's so incredible. It's so true that we don't sometimes I think we don't really change that much from when we're
Right?
little. Like
Totally. Like I'm the same person.
we have our
just
nature.
As stubborn. Just as stubborn as
Yeah,
ever.
me too. I'm super strong-willed and my daughter is too. And when I see that in her, I'm like, well, yeah, what else would you be?
Totally.
Do you have kids?
I don't yet.
I'm sure that you would think the same thing. Like if you saw them being kind of stubborn, really.
I'm scared. Personally, I'm scared for myself.
Well, if you're a strong leader, I think strong leaders are strong-willed children need even more guidance. And I'm sure that you would be able to guide them. I hope that you're not
cross our fingers
too scared because that's a great thing to be strong-willed and stubborn and a great leader. Like that's what I want in kids.
Definitely. Yes. Very excited for that stage of life. Hopefully it's not too far away for me.
Nice, cool. I have to stay updated on that.
Yeah.
And if you were starting a new business, like today, for example, Ali, what are the top 5 things you wish you knew or you had known before that you've learned along the way?
I wouldn't say are new, but I think they're so important. Like I can't the weight that needs to be given here is like first it's like I would spend all my time really figuring out and identifying like who our ideal customer is. And like especially when you're starting out with something brand new, really getting like airtight over like who is the customer profile you're going after and like what problem are you solving for them? Because if you can nail those 2 questions, everything from a product development side and like a go-to-market strategy becomes so much easier in like which channels you go after and so forth. So spending a ton of time there is really important. One thing that is kind of interesting in our period of time right now is like when you're validating new ideas of like, oh, I think this could be really, interesting and has legs and there's a ton of interest for it. I would test the idea through to some kind of form of payment, whether that's even, enter your credit card number to hold $1, like something where the customer is actually, opening up their wallet to for your product versus just giving you an email. Because I think right now consumers are just so inundated with like all of these new ideas and products and signups and wait lists and newsletters and so forth that you can think you have a ton of interest because you've gotten so many emails like, yes, I'm interested, join my wait list. But when it comes time to launch a product, people are distracted by all the options out there. So it's something where like it's a higher level of commitment from the customer. One thing that I'm getting better at that I would tell myself previously is really take your time when decisions are about spending money. So that could example is like hiring somebody. Hiring somebody is expensive. Take your time and really like go through the process, make sure they're the right fit, so forth. But move fast, really fast when decisions are about saving money. Don't pontificate over all of these things. Like, kind of back to the hiring example, if somebody is like not the right fit and you know that it's just not working, don't drag it out for 6 months or 12 months. Like, you already have the answer. Once you know, so make decisions and execute on them quickly. Your first employees really set the culture of your company as much as you personally do, because you can't be everywhere all the time. So when you're hiring that first, core group of employees, really making sure that they align to the cultural values and kind of like, environment that you want to build, because they're just extensions of building that for you and have huge, huge, huge impacts on where you go from there. So I just threw a lot out there.
all of the above.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the part about opening up their wallet, getting them to commit in some kind of way. That's incredible. Yesterday I was looking at a retreat that was from a lady who I had on my podcast previously, and she had on her website, pay $500 first to save your seat and then pay the rest later. And I thought, that's genius. It was a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, because then you're just like, you're actually getting folks to commit, or you're getting a better indicator of how your product will actually perform, even if it's not live yet, versus, if somebody said, yes, I want to attend, I'll give you my email. Like, that person may or may not actually attend the retreat. And you're getting a false sense of, demand for something.
That's a great point, that it tells you the demand. It gives you more of a sense of what the demand is. And similar for me with my first hire, I really wanted them to be, or they are aligned to the culture, and they reach out a lot in the emails, and they're like my right-hand woman, and they're doing a lot of the social media posts. It's because I want them to be in my voice if they comment on my post, because they have my login to my personal or the company's accounts, and if they comment on it, I don't want to have to worry about that, because that's the whole point, right, of having somebody who's handling, well, especially for social media, like we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, being able to be more present. And I used to feel the need to be plugged in all the time.
Oh, God.
I can't miss a Facebook message or LinkedIn. I have them all in a folder. And I'm Catholic, and for Lent one year, I gave up having social media on my phone. And I was like, I'm only going to check social media 1 hour a day. And oh my gosh, at the beginning, I felt as if I was going off a drug.
Yeah, you're having withdrawals.
Yeah, I was having withdrawals.
I
was like, I need an IV of the social media right here. Like, I need to, but I didn't put them back on my phone. If I'm being honest,
smart.
I kept them off my phone, and I have certain ones that I only check on my computer. And we have ways that we have content calendar and plan out like months in advance of our content. So it's already starting to go out. And then, so a few team members constantly check comments and messages. And if it's something I need to check, they notify me, make sure you saw this message. And I would say that saves me at least 25 hours a week of being on social media. And that has felt worth all the money in the world, or super liberating.
Liberating, that was the word I was going to use. Good for you.
Thank you. I highly suggest that to any entrepreneurs, of having that be one of the first hires, is to get someone who will be more in your voice, and they can act as you, or 3 people can act as you, and you're building all your online communities. And that's also how we've been able to scale to like 1.3 million right now, of just on all the different platforms, because we're everywhere. we're in all those places, but I'm not in all those places. I'm trying to take myself a little bit out of the
Your representative is.
yes,
Your brand is, you
our
personally are
company.
not. Yeah.
And my voice is, because
Yeah.
they're in alignment, like you were saying, with the company's mission and brand. I wanted to ask you too, what do you feel like are the top 3 traits that really make someone successful? We talked about, was it perseverance, right?
Perseverance is definitely up there. I think this is going to sound like a negative one, but it's not in a lot of ways. But like being obsessive, like when you're trying to build something and bring it into the world, like you have to obsess over it. Like it's something that you're thinking about all the time. Um, and I do think it helps people be successful in starting their own companies. Creativity is another one because you're faced with so many challenges and problems and fire drills, and being able to like think creatively on how to solve a problem and get out of it versus just like running into a wall is super important. And then I would also say thick-skinned.
Oh, I love
because
all of those.
because like there's going to be
Yes.
people that don't like your product. There's going to be a family member that doesn't get what you do. They're like, people just won't understand why you're working so much. So there's just being thick-skinned and saying, okay, like letting it roll off of you is really important.
I agree. I had somebody tell me something, well, a non-entrepreneur person recently, and this has happened a few times, where they said, why don't you try to talk to, if I got a negative response, for example, they would say, why don't you try to talk to that person and convince them that your brand is awesome. Like there's so many people that already think my brand is awesome, that want to be my clients. Why would I focus on that? But that's the difference, like you said, of being thick skinned. It's like, okay, scrolling on, like not a big deal. Thank you for letting
Yeah.
me know.
Yeah. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but it shouldn't let it stop you.
Exactly. And obsessive is an amazing one too. I've been called that a lot. Like to the point where, do you have OCD or something? You're so obsessed. I'm like, well, thank you. Because you just can't stop. You can't like turn off your brain when you're really into that, your business, I mean.
Totally. And that's why it kind of like has a negative connotation, but I think in this context, it's a requirement.
Exactly. And anything that you really want to succeed at and get done. And I'm going to move to the next one. What do you feel like are some of the overlooked strategies that most business people have no idea how important they are?
It's a great question.
So many.
Yeah, the big one, so general and business, and then I'll kind of narrow it down to my field specifically, but the biggest thing I'm seeing right now across, businesses and specifically like consumer products is the shift away from like paid advertising. So think traditional channels like Facebook, Google, and so forth, into more content creation, more partnerships with creators, more organic content, whether that's like posting on LinkedIn yourself or on your own Twitter or your own social media. um that's not going away. Like I think that over the next few years we're going to see a huge drastic shift in just the way that all companies do their advertising. And so the companies that are investing in content creation and strategies today will be leaps and bounds ahead. Like from a business, like people know their brands, and then also from a business unit economics perspective, because there's still so much opportunity to market more effectively across those channels than paying Facebook for ads. So that's like a big general business one. And then when it comes to my specific field, which is real estate investing and specifically short-term rentals, or think like Airbnb properties, I think one of the big things we're seeing across the market is this idea that like any property can be an Airbnb. Like, oh, if you put your home on Airbnb, you're going to make more money. Just like not true. There's so much that goes into actually taking a property and making it a really unique hospitality property. That's everything from the features of the home, the amenities of the home, like, things that draw people in or draw their attention or that they're excited to stay, similar to like why you go to a resort property. Then to the design, it needs to be up leveled, all the way through to the guest management, guest experience. The operators in my space that do those things will be super successful, but I think that we'll see this big divide of all of these properties that came on the market as Airbnbs will start to struggle, and you'll
I
start to
really
see
hope
more.
that, yeah, I really hope that they don't stay there because
Right, and so
I've had both experiences that you're talking
everybody's
about.
had, yeah,
Yeah.
totally, everybody's had their kind of like nightmare story. So I think as
Hmm.
consumers, like, we're gonna say no, I don't want that terrible property anymore. If I'm gonna pay good money and my hard-earned money to stay somewhere, it needs to be almost like a hotel level experience with all of the additional benefits of having more space, uh,
Hmm.
or a more unique experience, or in a better location than the hotels could be in. So that will be something that I think we see over the next few years, is like a lot of the terrible, I shouldn't say terrible, but a lot of the mediocre like operators and properties will start to go out of the hospitality space, and you'll start to see a stronger, you know, depth of supply emerge on the platform.
A lot of times they're the same price too.
Yeah, that's the
I
thing. They all
know it's
compare to each
confusing.
other. So, yeah, and it's hard for the consumer because then you're like kind of like hunting for, what is that better experience, and it takes a lot more work, and you know, it doesn't, like, each property doesn't have as many like reviews or articles or other sources like a hotel would traditionally, and so it's almost becomes like a treasure hunt for the best place to stay.
It does, and that happened to me recently. We went to Utah last summer, and
Oh, nice.
it seems like not many people wrote reviews, and then even I hesitated to write a long review because you come back from vacation and you're getting into the flow of everything and you kind of forget about it. But there was no AC. It was 3 floors. We weren't told that it was a townhome, so we
Mm.
thought that it was a home, like separate, but then when we got there, it was a townhome attached to another home. So that was kind of a disappointment because it was a big group. It was like a big family vacation.
Yeah.
And then there was no AC on the 3rd floor.
Of course, on the floor where you need it the most.
Yeah, it was the floor that we were excited to stay on because it was one of the biggest rooms with.
Yeah.
So then we had to rearrange everybody's sleeping where everybody was sleeping after they put down everything. And then we found out that they had the AC automatically set on like almost 90 degrees, like 88.
Oh
And it was programmed. So, I mean, luckily I'm techie and my fiance is really techie, and he unprogrammed it so we could reset it. I was like, why would anybody do that? That's just torture.
That's terrible.
It was terrible. It was so bizarre. I guess they were trying to save money on the AC. I
Yeah.
mean, otherwise there was there was an infrared sauna. So we
Oh, very
used
cool.
that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
super cool. And it had Himalayan salt around it. So it was a Himalayan
Very
salt
cool.
infrared sauna, which I had never used before. And we used that every night. So it
That's
wasn't
amazing.
all horrible, but
Yeah. But that's a perfect example. It's like that was an awesome amenity that was cooler than if you had just gotten like a hotel room.
Mhm.
But the guest experience lacked because for whatever reason. And so it's just like all of those things have to go right. And there's going to be more pressure from guests and consumers, to perform. That's my prediction. We'll see. We'll catch up
Yes,
in a
I hope that
year and
that's
see where
right.
we're at.
I want that to be right. because I want a better experience as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. And then you can trust the platforms too.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. And Ali, before we hop off, what do you feel like are the top 3 areas that you'd love to leave the audience with?
I think number one would be, just remembering and telling yourself if you're in the trenches of building something or starting something new or taking on a new challenge, that if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. So the most worthwhile experiences are usually ones that are tough. So stick with it. Um, a lesson I can hear my dad saying my entire life is that you always catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So people who are kind to others and do better in life. And so just remember to be at your core kind and respectful to everyone. Um, and then the one I have to tell myself often is stop waiting for the perfect time. There is never a perfect time, ever.
Ever.
The perfect
Yeah.
timing will never come. So stop waiting
Yes, it's
and start
true.
doing.
With anything, like having a kid, starting a business,
Never.
there could always be a reason to say no, maybe in a month. But yeah, it would never be a perfect time. I agree. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much for being here with us today, and we will also have all of your social media links in the show notes
Cool.
for people to be able to
Awesome.
reach out to you.
This was so fun. It was so great chatting. Thanks so much for having me.